Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mark's Backyard Birds. Today, I'm talking about one of the most popular groups of birds or families, if you will, birds that are out there. Easily, probably the most photographed bird that people send me pictures of, at least over the years being here in Missouri, that people just absolutely love them. Of course, I'm talking about the bluebirds. Now, bluebirds are small to at least maybe up to you might consider them a little more medium sized, but they're members of the thrush family. And that means they're related to several other species, robins being the most famous, of course. They're thrushes and towns of solitaires. There's several birds in the thrush family, but the three bluebird species that we have here in the United States are you can visually see why they're so closely related, and their food habits and their nesting habits are all are pretty much in alignment as well. But over in the eastern two-thirds of the United States, we are more famous for the Eastern Bluebird. The Eastern Bluebird is our state bird here in Missouri. It's also the state bird of New York, of all places. To be from here, Ruth, who works for me, has lived in those two states in her life, and so she's pretty proud of that. That the same state bird for the two states that she's lived in. But this is a male Eastern Bluebird. Beautiful, have a beautiful song. They went through a very serious decline, 100 years or so ago. And there's a lot of reasons for bluebird decline. They are cavity nesters, and will get out compete for their nest by introduced species such as house sparrows and European starlings, but also they get outcompeted by other resident birds who nest in cavities as well. And of course, they can't drill their own cavities, so they usually nest in old woodpecker holes or knot holes where a limb is broken off of a tree and created a natural cavity for them to get down and nest in. And they have a beautiful song. Being a thrush, they do have that a little bit of fluty quality to them, and it's written in literature that back at the turn of the last century, not this century, but the last century, they were as common as robins in urban areas. So they were a very common bird prior to the introduction of house sparrows and starlings that really it makes it very hard for them to succeed in urban areas. But there were other factors too. There was bad cold storms that reach really in the deep south where they migrate to in the winter months that really damaged their population. A lot of them died. They're like all three of the species of bluebirds we're going to talk about. They're all insectivores that really subsidize on berries during the winter. So they, whenever they're in the deep south where there's insects all winter, and if a cold snap hits down there, then it's very, very hard on them, and we lose them. In our area, a lot of people think all of them migrate out of Missouri in the winter, and they certainly don't. We have lots of bluebirds that overwinter here, but we do get a lot more in winter that come down from the northern states that it's much harder for them to survive the colder stretches up north. And one of the biggest limiting factors, of course, is unfrozen water. And that's why one of the reasons I recommend heated bird baths for these guys. They quite often they can find enough berries and like cedar bushes and things like that, but unfrozen water can be a premium for them, and a lot of them will die of dehydration. So we really recommend that you to put heated bird baths out if you're in an area like here where we tend to get a lot of freezing temperatures at night, and it will help your bluebirds out tremendously. So, but that's not this program is more about the different birds and their identification. So the male bluebird, pretty unmistakable with that brilliant blue head and back and the rufous chest and flanks. The female is not nearly as brightly colored, and the juveniles are not as well that are this age this time of year. This was just taken a couple of weeks ago in the storm we had here in Kansas City that really was horrid for a couple of weeks. And this is dried mealworms that are placed in these two dishes, and the bluebirds really take advantage of that whenever you have them out for them in the winter months, especially, but also during their feeding and nesting season as well. But you can see the bluebird is the female is more grayish in tones, and but does have quite a bit of bluish in the wings, not nearly as brightly colored as this beautiful male is here in this mix. So the Eastern bluebirds and their range is basically 2/3 of the United States. And you can see where all those that reach up into southern Canada and the northern tier states, they're not there during the harsh winter. There you see that the purple color and the blue color is the winter range or year-round range. So a lot of these birds shift south, and then February is the month that we start to see them shifting back north when they start heading back to their nesting territories. And that's the month that I recommend cleaning out bluebird boxes and preparing them and making any repairs that you need to. And we're going to do a video here the next week or two about how to repair damaged openings and holes in the bluebird boxes. So you're going to be looking for that. So this is the Eastern Bluebird range. And again, I would go through that. The male, the female, and I wanted to show you a picture of the juveniles. The babies, these are fledgling birds. They are not long out of the nest. And you can see the spots on their backs. And if you're familiar with baby robin pictures, baby robins have spots all over them as well. And this really kind of shows the relationship between all being in that thrush family. But you can see the blue in the wings and the tail. But these are baby bluebirds that are fledged and just learning the ropes, as we say just then. So in the eastern 2/3 of the U.S., but when we start moving out west, there's two different species of bluebirds that occur out there and nest out there. Now, a few years ago, several years ago now, we were bird watching in New Mexico in the winter, and we actually had all three species of bluebirds down there within a couple of days while we were birding down around Bosque del Apache National Wildlife Refuge. But one of the most beautiful of that you get to see out there are the mountain bluebirds. Now, mountain bluebirds differ from the eastern and western bluebirds because they don't have rufous in their chest and their flanks. They're all over tones of blue. And they're also kind of longer and lankier than the eastern bluebirds and western bluebirds. They have longer wings and tail feathers, but they tend to live out in open country more so than the western bluebird, which may be a little more wooded in nature. But mountain bluebirds tend to be really wide open birds. So in the mountains, they can nest way in higher elevations, but they do like more open country and with just enough vegetation or fence posts to find a nest in. Now I got a picture here that I downloaded from Adobe Stock, a place where I can get pictures, because not a lot of my customers that take pictures for me have pictures of mountain bluebirds. But if you want to send some in, you feel welcome to. The links are in the description below to send them at Mark at Backyard Bird Center. If you want to see your picture rather than one off of the computer that I have to pay for a subscription to, this is a pair of mountain bluebird. You can see a just beautifully blue that male is, and the female, and of course sexual dimorphism, as we talk about in other videos, that you can tell the male and female apart. And generally the female is duller because she has to sit on the nest and be more protective, and the males are gaudier and for attracting mates. But the female is very gray, especially compared to the female Eastern bluebird, which has rufous in her. But let's get back to her. Yeah, there she has that rufous on the flanks and on there, but it's not as brightly as colored as the male. So the mountain bluebirds are just absolutely beautiful, and they are cavity nesters. And we're going to talk a little bit about the bluebird boxes, and we're now going to be stocking Western and mountain bluebird nest boxes on the online store, because we are getting so many inquiries from people who live out west about them. And their bluebird boxes, their entrance hole is a little bit larger. Instead of 1.5 inches like the Eastern bluebird we've always carried, though they're 1 9/16. So we're going to start stocking those in case you want to order from us. But they're a little bit chunkier birds, so they need a little bit larger entrance hole to fit into. Remember, birds want their entrance holes to be just big enough for them to squeeze through. That makes them feel safer, rather than having a much wider open hole where other birds can get in there or predators can get in there. So we'll be carrying those on the online store. I think we got some coming in this week, as a matter of fact, which is pretty cool. The mountain bluebirds are out there, but also, and I'll show you, let's go show you their range map. Now, obviously, the western, especially half of the United States, and if you look, they do spread out into the plains and in the winter months. You see this lighter blue color in the center of the map, and down south, they do move down and they move out into the plains, and we've actually had them in Missouri occasionally over the years. And I know Kansas gets several reports, especially western Kansas in the winter months. But their nesting generally really higher elevations in the mountains and all the way points north. You can see all the way up into Alaska. So the mountain bluebirds are pretty widespread as far as their breeding range goes. And then the western bluebird, which I just had this picture sent to me this last week from one of our California people on YouTube. And these are western bluebirds, and there's a golden crown sparrow over there to the right. But the female western bluebird is on top, and a male is there on the deck railing. And the one thing to look at immediately to separate them, because obviously the colors are very much the same, but look at the western bluebird's throat. It has a blue throat that comes down to the chest, top of the chest, and where the eastern bluebird, which like I said, we looked at earlier, show you that, the red rufous goes up from its chest, up under the chin, up to the bill on an eastern bluebird. So they have red there, where this western bluebird has a blue throat from under the tip of the chin, the bill, down to its chest. And then the more red runs onto its back, or rufous onto its back, that can be misleading. So just make sure you get a look at that chin. And you, like I said, you guys out in New Mexico and Arizona and some of those states out there, you can get all three of them in the winter. It's really cool to be able to see all those. And they're eating insects and they're eating berries. Here is the western bluebird nesting range map, and the winter range and the lighter blues and year-round residents out there. So we don't get western bluebirds here and out in this part very often. It's quite rare when we get to find one out our way. So eastern bluebirds, western bluebirds, and mountain bluebirds, absolutely stunningly beautiful birds. Any group of birds you're always proud to have at your in your backyard, and you can get them to come to feeders. They will eat those dried mealworms like we had in the one picture with Bruce's shot here, and they'll eat fruit. They'll eat hull-less seed. I have a lot of luck with them eating my medium sunflower kernels. They can't crack open a seed. They're not really skilled at that because they don't have the right bill for it. But they definitely like the hull-less seeds and the dried mealworms and fruit. I've had people have luck that soak raisins in water and cut them into smaller pieces and put them out in a dish or bowl like that, and they'll eat the fruit as well. So that's something you can try to attract them. I know they love peanut butter and cornmeal mixtures and things like that. Those are also stuff that they like. So hope you have bluebirds, and wherever you are and watching this in the east, west, or mountain areas, because they're just absolutely stunningly beautiful birds. So thanks for tuning in. This is a great idea for a program. Like I said, one of the most popular family of birds out there. And remember, they are cavity nesters, and you can get them to nest in man-made boxes. You're just imitating nature by putting up a box like that for them. But you want that right size hole, 1.5 inches for eastern bluebirds and 1 9/16 for mountain and western bluebirds. So thanks for tuning in. It's a great idea for a program. Give us a like, give us a share. If you have ideas for future programs, please send them in. And until then, come on, let's talk birds.